Hello, everyone. Glad to see you again for this new meetup. Hello, Bilal.
Hi.
We are very happy to have Patrick Chopson from Covetool tonight. He will present us his new tool and more globally his approach on developing new digital tools for architecture and construction. So as usual, we will start with a short presentation of our BIM Agile BIM community with Bilal, and after we will go with Patrick. So Bilal, up to you.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Hi guys. Glad to be with you today and to present first, as usual, what we're doing at Agile BIM community. So for people who don't know, Agile BIM community is a community of architect, engineer, contractor. So IC guys. We try to share and to learn best practice about how to work better, less, and more efficient with some agile approach, like Scrum, like Kanban, like Lean Design Thinking, and other relation with agile. But also we try to impulse and to learn from the field of new technology like AI, parametric design, and other stuff. So particularly what we're doing, we organize, as we do now, meetups, maybe each 2 months. And we are very glad to have today Patrick Chopson. And I have also good news, because we will start a new learning experience. We will start training. So for the people who want to go further and go more deeper on learning agile approach with BIM approach, so you can join the waiting list. So I will just give you a link on the chat. Just click on it, join the waiting list, and we will keep you updated about the new the first training Agile BIM for the IC community. So it's okay for me. I finished, and please, Patrick Chopson, you can start. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
Thank you, Bilal.
Awesome.
Also, just to mention that you are on YouTube probably, and we have this Agile BIM channel. So don't hesitate to subscribe to our news and to also to watch all our other meetups. So we have a very different type of profile, different type of person who are thinking about how to implement Agile in our industry, and it's very interesting to watch all these different type of approaches. So thank you, and you can go to our website agilebim.org. So now, yes, I will introduce Patrick. So Patrick, yes, you are an architect. You are a co-founder of Covetool. So you will present us probably how you made this way to Covetool, and from an architect to a kind of developer, and also yes, what is your vision about and your day-to-day view about agility in the construction.
Beautiful. No, it's really a pleasure to get to speak with you all. So hello, bonjour. I know there's a lot of people in a lot of different places on the call today, or I guess our stream here. So I'm just really excited to talk to you all, kind of share some of my passion for the building industry, but also I'm super passionate about agile kind of frameworks anyway. I mean, that's, even as an architect, when I ran my own practice, I would implement a lot of some of those strategies because my co-founder in the software is actually Daniel Chopson, who's my brother. He's our CTO. And then my other co-founder is Sandeep Ahuja, and she's our CEO, but she's also my wife as well. So it's a nice co-founder. We're like a team of 70 people now. And we originally started off as like a consulting practice that then automated things to become a software company. And then we've raised about $36.5 million to date from Robert Downey Jr. From Iron Man, and also from Cove, which is one of the largest investors in startups that you may have heard of. They're now big companies like Apple and Facebook and Rivian and people like that. Tesla, they were early investors in them. So they're kind of one of those people that we get a lot of support from. So just kind of a little bit of background there. I'm a licensed architect in the United States. Actually did mechanical systems design, went to school to become a mechanical engineer first, and then realized that I didn't like repetitive tasks. So I decided I would do architecture instead. But I've always kind of been trying to marry those two aspects of technology, architecture, computational things, and how do we make the world better. So I'm also really, really, really super concerned about climate change. So everything about Covetool is unto reducing carbon. So we're using, I guess you could say we're using capitalism for good, getting people to think about cost, but then using that cost motivation to help them optimize for energy or daylight or glare, or what you see in the background here on my screen, which is a daylight simulation for the exterior of the building, helping people put solar panels in their projects, or maybe finding the right manufacturers for a specific wall assembly or things like that. So that's kind of like my background is kind of in that whole technology world. Went to Georgia Tech here in the United States, which does a lot of work on all things computational. So that's how I kind of got started. And I think maybe the format that I'll follow is more of a discussion type format. So I know that there's a lot of folks who can chat in the comments. So definitely drop as many questions as you can in there. I'll be more than happy to answer those, whether that's about startups or if it's about technology or about the Agile process that we use, certainly happy to share on a wide range of topics. So, but yeah, so I guess I kind of want to start off and talk a little bit about the background of how the technology of world that we are in now. I'm going to really focus on how you can, some practical things you can take away for your firm or your practice, like how you're going to help people maybe accelerate the digitalization of your workflow. A lot of times in the AEC, architecture, engineering, construction world, we see that many times people rely on tradition or something they did on their last project, and they don't think about the unit economics of what they're doing, how they make money, or how they do the work that they do. Or so they tend to throw unlimited labor at a problem. Like in the United States, we have a problem where people are overworked, and in many cases, they're working 70 hours a week. I hear some of the more boutique firms do the same thing, but at the end of the day, you're just using humans to try to do something that could probably be done better with a machine. And we've seen too that a lot of the software products that have come out over the last 30 years or so are also very much take advantage of manual labor, but they don't really help you with automation a lot of times. And so what we've seen the last, I would say 5 years, 6 years or so, is a massive growth of many different startups that are kind of attacking that problem of how do we bring more automation, more generative design, more computational and parametric workflows throughout how we work. So you can kind of see that, with Agile BIM as an approach. You can see that in what we're doing from a kind of building performance aspect. You've certainly seen that probably in startups that are maybe well known in Europe, like Spacemaker, or in the United States. I could definitely look to probably Arcall is one that you see a lot, making a lot of noise, or maybe TestFit, or even Snaptrude, which is a company that started in India but has moved to the United States and got a lot of funding. Yeah. So people are trying to figure out how do we fix this problem.
So you take me my first question. So, but it was the biggest question. So, are you the next Revit?
No, unfortunately.
This is yes. You mentioned all this startup, and there is a few articles about all this new tools, and everyone know that Revit was developing in the past century. So in the 90s, and we all see in our company that we can't work on big projects, and it's a very, very big problematic. And probably that there is this new letter to Autodesk from a few architects in the Northern Europe. And yes, there is all this problem. And I saw there is a very interesting publication on AAC magazine about this subject, about this letter, and about some new tools. And so the big question for everyone is who will be the next Revit? You don't think so?
I hope there's a lot of them. That is my hope. And I say that because I feel like interoperability and open source is the future, because one company shouldn't be controlling the flow of data and the IP of the architect and the engineer. That's just madness, because every time we create these point-based solutions, they tend to limit the flow of information. They destroy information from one source to the next. Like if you've ever tried to export an IFC model from Revit, you'll feel the pain. But that's what we want to avoid, I think, as an industry. So that means like more collaboration, more working together. So I do see a lot of the new startups are really, really focused on interoperability and moving beyond file formats to look at things like APIs to connect things together. So connecting an API is just a way of, it's a set of rules between two different databases. So if I make a query to you, you know the rules and I know the rules, and we can share that information together without involving a file. That constant stream of information then allows people to really be connected together better. And the real reason why Revit is not advancing is because their code base was purchased from Revit back in the day. And then it's a desktop-based application. So there's not like the ability to create open frameworks quite as easily anyway. They can't really connect things to it. And they don't have an incentive to do that, because to build a new tool would be to cannibalize the revenue from their existing one, which is kind of sad. And I think one of the things that's also kind of interesting is a lot of your flagship companies are owned by just a couple different large private equity firms, like Vanguard and BlackRock are the two that they have controlling stakes in all the major software platforms. So like Bentley, Autodesk, and I can't remember if ArchiCAD, I think they're part of Bentley too, Graphisoft. Yeah, all those are connected in some way. So there's not really an incentive for them to change how things are done, nor is their code base changeable either. So it's like, for example, the core code base for AutoCAD is so old that no one is alive today who coded the original kernel for AutoCAD. Or if they are, they don't work, they're retired. So for Autodesk to compile AutoCAD, each version, it can take them weeks to finish compiling the main core kernel, and they can't touch it because it's somehow, that no one knows how to edit it without breaking it. So that's kind of an example of why, we really, really, really need to make sure that we're building systems for how we work together that are not dependent on one company or one standard or one file format. We need to think differently and think more databases. And I think that's kind of like, if we look back in time, even just thinking about how the Agile process has come to be, it was originally software engineers who saw Christopher Alexander's work in the 1970s around the pattern language. And the pattern language was a great idea, I think, for architects, but unfortunately, no one really paid attention to it. And postmodernism came along and made everyone excited about, basing their building off of cardboard cutouts and whatever else that they came up with. But in reality, I think the software folks really saw, hey, we can break an idea into its component parts. We can make those into different pieces. We can stage things. We can create a more even delivery process for a project. And I think like the more that architects are also following that same methodology, there's going to be a lot of big unlocks from a profitability standpoint. So I think like looking at all that together, as I think about it, the kind of the big arc has been constantly building, like I said, these one kind of a solution for one person, architects, engineers, contractors, but there's not really a sense that those different pieces of software really can communicate with each other. I know there's like BIM 360 is a thing that came out, but we all know that sometimes that doesn't work either, or it goes down. So it's like, having all the information locked in the hands of one company, I think is quite a bad idea. It makes our system not very resilient for how we work as architects and engineers. So I'm kind of like of the mind that collaboration and sharing, and sharing is caring, but like being able to do all that stuff is really going to help break down those barriers between the information. So when we wanted to build our tools, we thought, let's not build another desktop-based tool. Let's build a web-based tool, and let's make everything as a service on servers, so that like if other people want to embed our software, they can. So we have, like, for example, an API, an open API that anybody can integrate their daylight simulation software, our daylight simulation software, inside of their product as well. So there's a lot of
example of a connection with other tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like SnapTrue, the one I was giving an example earlier, they have a daylight module they're going to release, but it's using Covetool simulations inside their software. And they're able to do that because they also built a web-based tool. So it was just easy to hook in another service. It doesn't matter where it comes from when you're building web-based things. Whereas like if you were building a desktop tool, everything, all the code has to be in the installed file typically. So that's kind of like, I think the transition we're going through is like leaving behind that desktop flagship tools that are like coming out once a year. Now we have software that's web-based that can be updated every day or every week if there's a problem or if something needs fixed, or if a particular person, is thinking about something. So anyway, that's just kind of like the background. I see the industry where we've come from, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and about so you mentioned that you use open source. So we receive in another meetup one guy from IFC.js and one guy from Speckle. So do you use this technology, or what kind of open source technology do you use?
Right. Yeah. So our energy modeling engine that we use is the ISO 13790, which is the EPC that you use in Europe. That's the engine that runs for our quick models. And that's actually an open source project. That's the Argonne ISO model. So you can actually access all the code for that. And then for our detailed simulations for mechanical engineers, we use Open Studio, which was developed by the US Department of Energy. And it's like a pretty good gold standard for energy simulation. But we actually contribute back to the main open source branch, and we speak with them when we find errors, so that everyone gets the benefit from our efforts as well. Because if you use something and that thing is always up to date and everyone can look at it and know how it was made, people have more confidence in the thing that you're building. So it makes sense to contribute to open source for those things. For file interoperability, we're currently working on an IFC import and export. So we're really, really big believers in the IFC vision. And I think now that we have like a drawing tool that allows you to like manipulate imported models from other sources like Rhino, Revit, SketchUp, whatnot. But when we import those models, there's a little bit of cleanup that's needed to make a simulation. So our drawing tool allows us to kind of assign materials, which then we can send that out via IFC. So we're really excited about that. And I think any time that I can find something like the EC3 database, for example, is a database from Building Transparency of embodied carbon materials, and it has materials from all over the world. So it's about 90,000 products in the database. So we're also, we actually sponsor that as well. In addition to like Microsoft and, Perkins and Will and other folks, they all contribute to that database's growth. And so we find that, like, again, if we can create a centralized repository for embodied carbon, it makes it a lot easier for us to build software, because we don't have to not do all the data entry for 90,000 products. Other people have done that. So it's like, or for example, like our street map, like what you can see behind me here, we're using the Open Streets maps, and then we redirect all of our 20,000 users to go to the Open Streets maps to contribute to that map whenever they see something that's not right. And so therefore, again, we're pushing people, to our own users and people we work with, to use open source, because we really do think that there's so many benefits to it.
Okay. And so, but yes, we talk about interoperability, but now you can talk to us a little bit more about your tool and what is going on inside your tool.
No, yeah, and I think like I'll just share my screen just really quickly, just to kind of show what that looks like, and we'll do this on screen 3. This, you just open this up here. So this is a project that we did an example for in Copenhagen. So we have like all the units and meters and whatnot, but just kind of showing how when you put a project in, we can get these like really cool daylight models. We can look at floor by floor, like the views, and we can like zoom in, for example, this lower floor and see a grid-based analysis for the different types of things that you might need for your code submission, or if you're in some places where they use LEED, you can do that. You can look at spatial daylight autonomy, and also look at things like COVID analysis to figure out how many people you can put in there. Maybe you want to look at like sun hours for like where you're meeting the requirements for the number of hours of sun per day for the, I guess in Denmark they have some rules around that. So there's kind of like a 3D element to it. There's like a drawing component to it, but everything in Covetool is automated for that purpose. So we're connecting them together. We can do things like optimization using machine learning, looking at different bundles of components and finding the lowest cost for the lowest amount of embodied carbon for the lowest payback. And then we can see which one of those, and this is in Danish kroner. So, but any location you can actually change it. Or
yes,
you
how do you adapt to the local regulation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have to, when we go into a new country, we obviously use the climate zones for that location to set some of those numbers. And then once we start getting users in a country, we'll take their code and then we'll digitize the different settings for the energy model for different building types. So if I selected like back here apartments, which is my use type, then I can either use a US code in this case, or I could actually, if we have, I think in Copenhagen, we don't have the code yet put in there, but we can actually select the local code and then it pre-populates for your energy model, all the different parts of the simulation, like usage and schedules and your systems and energy generation for like solar panels. You can add that and create reports and whatnot. And so all those different things that would take like a consultant maybe a couple months to do, we're basically allowing someone to actually be able to do that themselves, which saves a lot of time. There's also things like quick facade studies that people do where maybe they want to do just figure out like maybe what size of windows you should do. Like for example here, if I'm looking at these windows, I could change like the width of the window, and I run a real time kind of daylight simulation. Look at glare versus daylight. Maybe I could change the width again, see what that looks like, or look at the southern side of the building. And then maybe here I could add some overhangs or fins, and then immediately be able to kind of get that quick feedback. So kind of like design on different levels, which kind of goes back to the idea that you don't want to try to do everything in one go. Maybe you want to just do it in iterative loops faster, which is definitely something that we're always trying to optimize for. So, but yeah.
Okay, so you develop lots of different tools to help the architect or engineer to solve the problem or their analyze.
Yeah. So definitely able to bring kind of like what used to be individual softwares together. For example, like some people still use Honeybee or Grasshopper or something, but it is still like maybe 30 hours to run a daylight model. So no matter how fast everything else is in their kind of Grasshopper workflow, if that whatever is the slowest thing is the thing that's going to make you not able to move forward quickly in a design iteration. So like, for example, our daylight simulations take about 3 to 5 minutes for a whole building. So for every floor, as opposed to one. So like Daniel and I, my other co-founder, when we were sitting there thinking about how to make daylight simulations, we actually rewrote the entire daylight simulation from scratch. And then, so we're able to optimize it and split it into servers. Again, the benefit of a web-based tool, you can put different calculations on different servers instead of doing it all on your desktop. things like that.
And all the calculations are live like this.
Yeah. So we're not doing things like guessing or predicting. It's all based on the actual model or the inputs that we have in front of us, which is pretty cool.
Okay, and so all these tools are for which stage? Is more for the design stage, for the early design stage, or it's for?
Yeah, so it's basically like any time that you need an answer for any part of the project, we have different things that you could do in it. Like if you had, I just have a grasshopper model, I want to do some massing, you could optimize massing. But maybe you have a late stage Revit or maybe you have an ArchiCAD model and you want to optimize the ArchiCAD super detailed design. So no matter what stage you're in, you can use it. It's kind of like if you go to a gas station to ask for directions. That's like having a consultant. They will give you directions, but you have to remember those directions as you drive. Whereas like with us, because you can just work so quickly and go back and forth, it's kind of like having Google Maps where you can or constantly check the map as you drive. It makes it so that you get to your destination more likely than not. And it makes it like you don't get lost as much either, which is typically what kind of happens a lot is someone's trying to figure out the embodied carbon of their project. And they're like, this is too hard. I'll just do what I did on my last project instead. So kind of helping people overcome the barrier to entry. So that's like democratization of sustainability and decarbonization. So it's not just consultants, but it's everyone.
Yeah. What are your clients? What are your clients actually?
Yeah. So like a lot of our users, is that kind of, I think if I take the mean, like,
users.
Yeah. So we got users, all your like 3-letter firms, like your big mega firms, but also like your smaller practices. So we'll have people who are maybe 5 to 10 people in their firm who don't have an internal technology or sustainability team. So they're using our software to make themselves more profitable and, find ways to do that. And then we also have like your mega firms that are like, a lot of times a large firm wants to double down on technology to get the competitive edge over another large firm. So you'll see that like different size ones. And maybe if I'm like an AECOM or somebody like that, maybe I want to embed some kind of simulation inside of a tool already built. Or if I'm like Arup, maybe that's the same kind of thing because I think they're also Speckle originated in Arup. So, there's like things like that we really want to be an API for, but like a smaller firm that doesn't have an interface to all their digital practice is probably going to rely more on a tool that has an interface built out like us. So it kind of just depends on what people are doing. But we have like over 300 large firms in the application. So that comes out to around roughly 20,000-ish users in the platform. So it definitely means that we see a lot of models, which helps us when we're doing things like benchmarking for carbon, right? We can ask those users for real models, and then or if we're benchmarking carbon or cost optimization or cost values, we can go to a manufacturer and say like, hey, we're big enough that we can give us cost data, and they'll be like, okay, we'll give it to you.
What's the new tools you are going to develop?
Yeah, so the one that I'm really excited about is our embodied carbon tool. And so what that one does is allows us to specify with 4 questions. Then we do automated structural calculations in the background to estimate the volume of concrete and steel or whatnot in the project, so we can provide an accurate embodied carbon estimate to within 5% of reality. That's never been able to be done, where someone with no knowledge could create full embodied carbon thing. And that's why like only 1% of projects are modeled for the embodied carbon. And then the other one we're building is this cost estimating tool as well. So the cost estimating and embodied carbon kind of go together because they're both based on quantity takeoffs. So it allows us to figure out like the actual cost of a project within 5%. And and the actual like embodied carbon within 5% to help people make more informed decisions around carbon. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Okay, because I'm very curious and I'm an architect, can you show us maybe not a use case, but maybe an architect which is in a big firm or a small firm who wants to I don't know to improve and to have some carbon information they like simulation? Can you maybe if you can show us a little a bit how to import I don't know, a model from ArchiCAD, Revit, and other software? And
yeah, definitely, for sure. Let me just share this.
To show maybe to the community how to deal with software.
Let's see here. Let's go from screen number 3. There we go. And then let me just show you guys. So when we're looking at a particular import, so we have a bunch of plugins like Procore, TestFit, or Blender BIM. So again, another open source tool, IFC model. Or if we're looking at like going from Revit or SketchUp. So if I'm in Revit, for instance, it's like this kind of drop down where you can like click that and then you basically log into your project, select the login, select the project, and then you can export out all the different things. And what's kind of cool about it is it's just based on views for Revit, for instance, or if we're in Rhino, we're using Grasshopper, or if we're in like SketchUp, it can find all the double walls and turn it into a single wall. So we're kind of using whatever the plugin sources of the information. We designed the how we import from there differently so that it works with how you're modeling, because like each software has a different way of doing it. So like, for example, if you see here in this image, these are the different layers of objects. So like floors, walls, roofs, windows from SketchUp, and then shading objects. So those are the different categories. And then you're just uploading them. And then when they come in, you can either use the drawing tool. So the drawing tool is like where you can, let's just do this. Let's zoom out here. So like if I switch to like 3D, you can kind of see what this looks like. So if I imported a model from, in this case, this came over from Rhino, I can see maybe things that didn't come in quite right, and then I can fix them here. And this is really helpful for interoperability to be able to view your model. And then when I can export from here, or I can download a 3D model and then go to the 3D analysis, which is like what you see here. And then I can recalc if I wanted to. So for example, if I go to like SDA, and I can set, right now the grid size is set to 0.6 meters or so. And if I do calculate, I can show you basically it'll run, before we're done with this call, it'll run all the different models for all the different floors and then return back the daylight simulations. And then you can obviously download a room by room daylight model as well. Or if I go back to, once I run it here, I could go back to Grasshopper and download all the grid meshes inside of Rhino or something like that. So it's like we're trying to make it so you can basically connect out to the different platforms, if that makes sense.
All the plugins are bidirectional, or it's depend?
The Rhino one is bidirectional because Rhino has the most flexibility, whereas like Revit had their built-in Revit SDK environment thing that they have is very difficult to work with. So a lot of times it's hard to make it come back. So for example, like it just finished running a daylight simulation for that floor. And so it's going to load those in as it finishes each one, and it'll load them in as well. So kind of gives you a sense of how fast it is.
We have a question from Resida BIM. Can you import IFC on Covetool, in Covetool?
Yeah, so that's something we're going to come out with in the next, I'd say, so right now is September. I would say by end of October, early November, you'll be able to import IFC as well. And that'll be, and also export IFC. So if you use the drawing application, and if I go to, like, for example, the 2D view here, I can add walls, right?
So you can draw inside Covetool.
Yeah, and then you can export this to, we're making it so you can export to IFC as well. But it's like auto dimensioning and everything. So kind of like allows you to make multi-zone models more accurately. And it's kind of like a lightweight kind of sketching tools. It has all the different components. We also have like an assembly builder. So you can build wall assemblies, or you can integrate different things. Or like if you wanted to place a DXF for an image to trace, it'll bring those in as well.
Yeah, so you are near to a real desktop application, BIM desktop application.
I have a question, Patrick. How are you dealing with reports and so analysis, but reporting and other kind of data? How it is possible from Covetool to have reports easily, and can you maybe show us how to do it?
Yeah. So like a lot of times when people are reporting the data for like lead, they're downloading an Excel spreadsheet, and then they take the numbers and they type them in. Or if you're using like an EPC for UK, you're going to take Covetool's outputs from an Excel download or PDF or whatever that comes out of it. So like if I share this again, sorry, I keep stop sharing, but share a screen through again. Yeah, so if I go, for example, to our a sample report, so I just put my Iron Man logo in here, but there we go. So for example, if I'm looking at this one, I have all the information that I might need to report to an authority on a new project that I'm working on. Maybe I need to share this with an engineer, or like water use, or what are the strategies I should be using. So this is kind of like the ability to share with a client is what this is showing here. All the different diagrams that you might need, or what passive strategies are going to be.
It's a web page.
Okay, so if I understand good, we generate a report based on web, right? And we can export that after that if you want on PDF like that.
And you can also like invite people to your project. So you can invite like a team of people, like maybe your mechanical engineer needs to see this. So instead of sending PDFs, you can just invite everyone to the same place. And then it also logs over time the energy use. So you can see like who made the change and then when that change was made. So that's kind of like a helpful thing. And you can also have, of course, different chats and stuff. So it kind of makes collaboration a little bit easier.
Yeah, so you can invite other stakeholders and collaborate inside the tool.
Right. You can also export out a GBXML or a .osm file for energy modeling. So if you have like maybe an engineer that uses IES or some really fancy software like that, they can also take the Covetool geometry that was generated in Drawing Tool or imported, and they can send it to a super cleaned up version that's automatically been cleaned up. So it saves like about 30 hours. Just this one little button right here saves 30 hours for the engineer.
Okay, nice. Thank you. And we have another question from Revit BIM 2. Could you showcase a KTO workflow?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Can you showcase a KTO workflow?
KTO.
What is a KTO workflow?
Revit BIM, can you please explain us what you're talking about, please? Thank you.
Yeah, we will wait for more information. But what about iteration and comparison? How do you deal with that? Or making some different tests, or have a different type of model and make some iterations, or be able to optimize your model version to version, and or otherwise have iteration and be able to compare these different iterations?
Oh yeah. So like I guess like the easiest way to do that is like on our projects page. So if I go to like my actual project, I can actually look at all the different ones. So if I have two projects that I've uploaded different geometry to, I can go in here and I could compare them. And then it'll show me, like if I switch to like metric units, I can look at the different energy uses and things for different ones. Or so that's one way that you could do that. Or if you're just like, maybe you want to group a sequence of projects together. If I select this one, I can add it to like a tag, or I can put it in a folder. So I can make folders and things like that to kind of like group different iterations of the same model and then compare them over time. So I can make sure that I'm going in a good direction. And I think there was one chat like in the questions about the quantity takeoffs.
Yeah, it was the quantity.
Yeah. So the quantity takeoff, you can currently download, like you can see, I guess not download, but you can actually go to, if I'm in a particular project, like let's say if I go to this one and I go to the geometry page, it'll show you the areas of the different walls and windows. But we are working on a true quantity bill of quantities takeoff for the cost feature we're building, which will allow you to actually get down to much more granular, like master format or an omni-class based format of like tracking some of that information. So that's like definitely on our roadmap for later this year. Probably early 2023 is when the cost tool will be coming out. But we do have like focus groups on that where people get together and talk and get that information. So if you are interested, let me know. I could definitely add you to a focus group where we're discussing that feature right now. So that's another thing too. Like we really work super hard for the different folks that we're to make sure that we really understand what the
he go.
He delete himself, I think. So he will be back in a few minutes. So Patrick, where are you?
If you have any questions, so feel free to ask us on the chat. Oh, Patrick is coming. Yeah.
Sorry. I hit leave instead of stop.
You delete yourself.
I left myself. So hopefully I didn't mess it up. Anyway, so I guess like we're really excited about the quantity takeoffs and cost estimating stuff when that comes out. We try to make sure that we follow what we call a practice-driven research workflow, where it's like you get information from people, you build tools, you show them to them again. So we have like a chat in our application, and we take that feedback and feed it right back in the development process. So we're always like following a 2-month cycle between when we build something, when people see it, give us feedback, and we build the next version. So it allows us to iterate much more quickly than like someone who has like some companies that have a 1-year development cycle.
So this is typically an agile approach. So did you use to come back to agile? Did you use a framework like Scrum for developing, or it's more some different practices?
Yeah, so I think Daniel is like the master of agile at our company, but so I'm more coming from an architecture background. I may not have all the right terminology for what we do, but basically like he follows like a 2-week sprint cycle. So it's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a hybrid, but within that there's individual teams that have individual cycles like per week as well. So it's broken down to like pieces. And so that really keeps us like very, very quickly iterating all the time. And then also our product and software sit right next to each other. So everyone is like, it's like someone is making an idea for a product, and instead of just working by ourselves in an ivory tower, we invite the software engineers to kind of come to a weekly development meeting where they'd say like, hey, that thing that you're thinking of doing, that will take 10 weeks. This other thing will take 1 week. And then it allows us to kind of like customize the development of features around the software time it takes to actually make it as well. So we kind of pick the low-hanging fruit first from a development standpoint, so that we're not like designing things that are impossible to build, which is important when you're a startup to not go too far down the wrong path.
And now that you are working on that that type of workflow for developing your application, could you have some parallel with the way we work in architecture, in particular in the design stage? So is it possible for you to have this kind of iteration and this kind of agile work?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is to not when you're actually doing real projects like architecture projects, is to not be focused on trying to deliver like the design phase of like DD package, like from start to finish. Like if you try to go 3 months and deliver something, that is very difficult, and why a lot of things are getting missed. But if you're more iterative, like I'm going to reduce the amount of time it takes me to do each task to the smallest possible time, and then understand where the choke points are, and then bringing in like a mechanical engineer to review something and figuring out like that mechanical engineer, if I give it to him without any furniture, he's just going to guess how many people are in that space. But so having a checklist like this is the information that I need to give to the person to make sure that the design cycle continues. And here's the format they need in, or here's the format I need to come back in, and having strong like SLAs, or I guess in software that would just be good. I mean, in architecture would just be good contracts.
Yeah, like, because the problem is to have a scrum with people from different company in different place. It's not the same that 10 or I don't know 5 or 10 developers in the same room. It's not working. So so you mean we have to develop some package of information, and we exchange this package so everyone has the right information at the right moment, and they can make their work with this package of information.
Yeah, like a lot of times, like architects will send to an engineer a file that has 1,000 exploded like lines, or like local families in their Revit file, or like some random thing will happen where the standards for data exchange are not well thought through. Maybe sometimes that happens because poor contracts, or maybe just not everybody has the same standard around their workflow. But if you can find other people in the process who are willing to be more working in parallel rather than sequentially, you're able to share that information also via API to other parts of the process. So if I'm an engineer and I have a connection directly to the architect, now I can see whenever the architect starts to veer away from like what's the best practice, like if they're using too much glass, if I know about that before they have designed the whole project, then it's less work for everyone. But that kind of like throwing it over the wall mentality, where it's like, I finished my thing, now I'm going to throw it to you and hope that you figure it out. That is like the enemy of like good agile workflows.
We have a great new technology, but after we have to change the way we work, and it's probably more difficult than just learning some new tools. So that's the problem we try to solve with Agile BIM, to change this mentality and change the way we work with the help of these new tools that can help, that can make us change also.
I have a question because I'm a bit curious. Do you have maybe a roadmap and a few vision of IC industry and what you're planning with Covetool for maybe not the 5 new years, but like you work with iterative approach, but maybe in the next few months, what are you planning? And what is your view on developing Covetool on the market too?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're working on, like just like my vision, is that the information flows smoothly from one person to the next. Like that's step one. I think that's like 2023 is like the year that I feel like we'll have stitched all the different sub-consultants together into one place where they can kind of like exchange that information smoothly. But I think the long-term goal is to introduce AI into the process and build like the architecture machine from like Nicholas Negroponte, 1970s guy as well. A lot of really good ideas happened back then for some reason, but a lot of pure ideas as well. But I really hope that there comes a day, and I think Covetool is going to be a part of that, where we're able to speak iteratively to a machine that then returns back resolved ideas for us. Similar to what you're seeing right now in the whole visualization space with like Midjourney and like DALL-E and these different generative, image software. I think we will see this happen for architecture, and I don't think it'll be long. I think it'll be within 5 years. You're going to be talking to your software.
That's a good news. So yeah, okay.
Is it a good news for architect for you or engineer, by the way?
So that's my prediction.
Yes, but is it a good news? Yes, for you, yes.
I think it's good news for architects and engineers overall, because then you can do more iterations. So it's like, and you can have a more resolved designs. So if like right now, a lot of people are spending time chasing down all the data and wrangling the data rather than doing the fun parts, which is like cool design. So I think like you'll work 40 hours instead of 80, but you'll get paid the same. That I don't think will be different. But we'll just see more well-resolved projects that are also like, imagine a world where every project is net zero and like there's no code violations, and every room has plenty of daylight. Every building is fully thought through, and there's no like forgotten pieces, or I can't tell you how many times I've seen projects where there's a room with no door on it. So a doorless room. So like a world with very few mistakes in the design process is what I'm looking forward to, where everyone works a reasonable number of hours and goes home to their families, and architects get paid more. That's my ultimate dream.
Okay, and so did you miss a little bit your work as an architect? Are you practicing a little bit?
I love design. Like I used to do modern houses here in Atlanta, and I feel like probably I'm pretty decent at it, but I don't miss the grind of getting the projects done, but I do miss the aspect of design. So now the way I think about it, I'm designing how people design. So that's the part that really makes it more of it's still the same problem. It's like if I'm going to design an interface, like it's like walking into a building. You don't want the sign to be falling down the front of the building. You want it to be a good experience all the way through. So I think user experience is very similar to architecture. So I get my design jollies, as they say, still, but I think I do look forward to a time when this problem of carbon is solved, where I can go back to like maybe I'll be an architect again in a conventional sense. But I got to make sure there's a future for my children and other children as well. So.
Yeah. We have another question from Revit BIM. How you talking about creating a common data environment inside Covetool? Yeah,
so for that, we do that via our API. So our developers.covetool.com is our kind of like API that we've been developing to kind of make everything communicate and allow us to communicate outside of our platform to other folks. So the more you can split each part of it into a microservice, the easier it becomes to like also allow things that we've made to be embedded into other more cool. There's other cool startups. I want to make sure that they all have access so they don't have to rethink the wheel. But the more projects, my goal is basically see every project get its carbon reduced. So whatever I need to do to make that happen is the kind of technology that we're going to invent or share, or, create an open source or connection to. So for me, it's really about that impact is the reason that I do everything every day.
Okay, thank you. Do you have other question, Bill?
I had, but you answer, Patrick. It was about interoperability. So how are you dealing with that? But I think you have answered to that. But yeah, but I can ask you too. But how are you dealing with the new startup? Like you told you talked before, Testify, are cool, which is coming soon, I hope. We had also Spacio last time. So how are you dealing with interoperability with them? So are you seeing a kind of open source software and very easy to communicate, or is it difficult and it will be like now with Revit, each software will have a workflow and it will be difficult? How are you dealing with
Yeah.
that?
I really see that all the new startups are kind of like people like us, right? Like they're like, I'm just tired. They started their company because they were tired of dealing with Revit or Autodesk or something. So
Sometimes we are from Autodesk, I heard.
yeah. So like, or they tried something in a big firm. They're like, this is never going to happen. I got to go build it on my own. So there's a lot of sharing culture out there. I think people like to talk about like what they're doing and how they could share what they're doing with others. So in my experience, having talked to about 100 different companies, because I just talk to people and because we have an API and we all talking about that. So that's kind of been my experience thus far. As everyone's like super excited, they want to share, they want to like band together to make a really cool future. So I don't think like file formats are going to be a thing in the next little while. Like most people aren't even interested in doing that. They're like, yeah, I just want to like open an IFC model. I don't want to have our proprietary data format.
Very
Are you
open.
exchanging sometimes with other startup or?
Yeah. So like for example, there's a lot of startups that are like new, like maybe they're early stage, and they're like, man, is my pitch deck look good for this investor? And I'm like, so a lot of times I'll take a look at people's pitch decks and give them feedback and advice, or if they need like a technical expert to talk to the investor, and I can be like the third party that's like talking to them, saying like, hey, this is actually a cool thing. You should definitely invest in it. So a lot of times I do whatever I can to support other founders, especially ones that are like women and minorities as well, because like a lot of times the great ideas are being overlooked by the big investors. And so, obviously my wife is the CEO of Covetool. I understand like a lot of the challenges that arise from dealing with that environment. So we're very pro help when it comes to like other startups, like giving them contacts or people we know, or connecting them with like, hey, I know a software developer is looking for work right now. I can't hire them, but maybe you want to hire them, things like that. Just being helpful.
It's great because the market is big. So
if there is any startup here in the RC industry, you have to contact Patrick Chopson. So feel free to do it. Yeah.
Always excited to help.
Yeah.
I just like good ideas. I'm like, if I saw like 20 new startups that did something better than what we're doing, or I'm like, yes, like let's see it.
Nice. Collaborative approach. Yeah, very good. Okay. So
no,
if you have any, okay.
A new question. Can you give us round cost estimates?
Soon we'll be able to give a detailed cost estimate. So I would say like check back Q1 2023. We'll have like a detailed cost estimate, which is really cool. So, but at the moment, our cost is limited to the options that you're considering in the optimization. So you're going to look at the relative differences between like 4 or 5 different things. And then the machine learning uses the cost to rate each of your bundles of things. So, but yeah, soon we'll be able to do the whole building, not just the things that you're optimizing for, which is pretty cool.
Okay, thank you. If you have any question on the chat, feel free to ask us.
It's the last call.
The last call. It's around 1 hour, and after that, I think if
it's
you don't have
very interesting to have this open conversation. We didn't do things like that, so it was a very very interesting. So I don't know. I didn't see any new question. So Patrick, thank you very much. So for this conversation. And I hope. So, do you have a trial version of your tool? How can we start?
Yeah. So if someone wants to get started, you just go on the website, you request access, and then somebody will figure out how many trial users you need and what you want to look at, what kind of plugins, and they'll find all the resources and videos you need for different things. So we try to really help folks when they want to learn something, and just give them everything. We also have a YouTube channel too with all the training videos.
We have to subscribe, and after we have a personalized experience, and you help us to start. Yes, because there is a lot of different options in your tool, and yes, it's always the problem to learn.
We got to make sure people get the thing that they need. So that's our commitment. And then also the software is free for students and academia. So if you're doing some kind of research project, we're always excited to contribute to that by providing free software for that.
That's a good point.
I mean, just for the people who were not on at the beginning, just to talk about the training we're doing at Agile BIM organization. We will start soon, we hope, a new kind of learning experience for Agile BIM. So feel free to join the waiting lists. I will just share the link on the comment, and we will keep you updated with your email, and that's it. So big thanks to Patrick, and you guys, to the community too, for being here on at this time, at this hour. So thank you all, and hope to see you next on the next meetup. Maybe Patrick, you have the last words for you.
Just dream to do really cool things. That's my motto. So keep it up.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you us for everyone to following us, and see you soon for a new Agile BIM meetup. Bye bye.
Ciao.